Hello everyone, welcome back. Myself Kumod and I am a data science consultant at brillica-services. Today we'll be covering a topic which are data types in Python, right? Since it's a basic fundamental skills required for Python, whenever you start our any Python programming language or any other programming language, the first thing you will learn what are the data types present in that programming language. So in today's class, we will be covering about the basic data types present in any coding languages. Okay, so if you move to the next slide, then we will find that there are 5 different data types and they are classified as basic data types in Python. Now, why they are classified as basic data types? Because in every programming languages or any other languages or any analytical tools that you use have this similar data types as well. Suppose if I come to the first one, which is integer, the second one, which if I come to, which is float, the third one if I come to, which is strings, the fourth one which I come to is booleans, and the last one complex. The complex numbers are something that must be newer to everyone, but when we come to integers, floats, strings, and booleans, they are all the same data types that we used in SQL, Python, Power BI, or Excel, or any other language like C++, Java, anything. But these are the code data types that we are evenly or continuously used, right? So that's why they are classified as the basic data types in Python. Sometimes they are also classified as the Python core data types, right? So we'll be covering this in data types in detail in today's class. So let's understand what are integers. In Python, integers are whole numbers that can be positive or negative, right? Any whole numbers existing, can it be either positive or negative, that can be classified or converted into integers. Okay, they are essential for arithmetic operations, like whenever you have to perform any calculations like addition, subtraction, divisions, or any other mathematical operation, right? We need numbers. And if we need the whole numbers, then the best data type to store those values are integers, right? For example, it can include 5, -3, 0, 42, or -42, or any like 100, 200, 1 lakh, 1 crore, anything. But any value that are whole numbers and either positive or negative are classified as integers. Okay. Moving to the next data type, which are floats. Floats represent decimal numbers in Python. Basically, those numbers which can't be stored as whole numbers, we are converted and stored as floats, right? They basically are used to for precision. Like suppose you know that Python in Python or any programming language or even in maths, the value of pi is 3.14, right? But if you go to the more precision of pi value, it's then 3.14, 12176, something like that, right? It goes on and on, right? So but for precision we only use 3.14 as the value of float, right? So that's basically the definition of precision, right? And those type of values are stored in the form of floats in Python, right? Basically, Python can also be classified as continuous data. Continuous data basically means those data which we basically collect from measures or any formula like age, salaries, flow, sales, profit, loss, anything. Basically, there wherever we use any measurable techniques or the formula, right? They are basically stored in the form of floats. Okay. Moving to the next, which are strings. Basically, strings are those which are referred to as text values, right? Strings are sequence of characters enclosing codes. They are widely used for text handling in programs, right? Suppose other than numbers, there are two other data types which are text, right? Anything like stored in A to Z form, like my name. Suppose if I have to store my name Kumod in programming language, then the best data type for that would be strings, right? And they are classified as sequence data type. Sequence means basically everything is stored in a structured way. We can do indexing, looping, or we can perform functions, operations, or we can also use hrefs on that. So that's are basically referred to as sequence data type. Okay, for example, it can include hello or Python or my name or your name, whatever it is. Okay, anything that we want to store in the form of text can be. For that, we need to use the data type as string. And one more thing, strings are the only data type in Python. They are classified as sequence data type as well as the basic data type. And strings are the only data type that can store any existing value in Python, right? For we just covered integer and floats, right? In float, integer float, we can only store numbers, but in strings, we can also store numbers, text, emojis, long text, whatever it is. Even Boolean value can be stored in strings, right? Moving to the next, the Booleans. Booleans, everyone must be familiar about Booleans. Booleans are basically those data types that can have only two possible outcomes or values, right? Which are true or false. They represent the truth value of conditions. Conditions like in 10 greater than 20, then it will return false. 20 greater than 10, it will return false. 10 equals 10, then it will return true. 10 equals 11, it will not. Basically, anything that Boolean data types in Python are mostly used with operators like suppose conditional operators, logical operators, identity operators, bitwise operators, and many more. Basically, the output of those operators are classified into Boolean's data type. Okay. Moving to the next, the newer data type to everyone would be complex numbers, right? But in Python, I think in mathematics, in our earlier school classes, we must have known about complex numbers, which were used to store, which were basically stored in the form of a plus bi, right? Bi. But in Python, I is a universal variable that that's not like compulsory, but it's a kind of universal variable that basically that's are used mostly with for loops, right? So that's why Python did not store these in the form of a plus bi. They used this in the form of a plus bj. Okay, so any number that is written as a plus bj, or and any value can be that can be stored for a and b, but j will remain same. So those type of numbers are classified as complex numbers. In the format of a plus b j, a is the real part and b is the imaginary part. Okay, they are widely used in scientific and mathematical computations. Okay, so we just covered about the five different data types in Python. Just there is a just one more section in that I would like to highlight. Out of these five basic data types, strings are the sequence data type. I just mentioned this in just few minutes ago. They are iterable, meaning you can access elements using indexing or loops. Basically, they are sequence data type can be classified as those data types that are iterable, meaning you can access elements using indexing or loops. Okay. So that was the theoretical part about basic data types in Python. Let's move to some practical implementation of these data types in Python. So for that, let me open Jupyter Notebook. As you all can see that I am opening a new blank Jupyter Notebook. In that, I'll be teaching you about the data types that we just learned. For that, let's first start with integers data type, right? Integers. But for before that, I like to state that Python are dynamically typed languages, right? Which means Python automatically detects the correct and most suitable data type for the values assigned, right? These are basically done using the Python automatically. Like we don't even have to specify this type of data types what do we want to store, right? Suppose if I write x equals to 5, right? And if I print x, then it will give me 5, right? But if I wanted to know what kind of value is stored in the x, whether it's integer or whether it's float or whether it's complex or whether it's boolean, right? For that there is a function which is a type function. Type is a built-in function which basically detects the data type stored in the variables, right? If I write type of x, then it will return class integer because 5 is a whole number and whole numbers are classified in the form of integers, right? So that's why Python does this in the backend, and that are therefore is dynamically typed. Basically, those type of values that can be easily understood by Python, and it can be stored in the correct data type by the Python itself. So that's why it's referred as a dynamically typed. And when we check type of X, it returns class int for integer. But why does this return class? Class basically returns because whenever you call any object, right? It's a concept of oops. Whenever you call any object, then the output is in the form of class, right? Suppose if I write this x is the object, right? Whenever we create any variable in the memory of Python or in the memory of our system, there is an object created and that object is referred as x. So that's why whenever we call type function, it's written as class integer. Okay. Suppose if I write x equals to -5, right? Since this is also whole number but a negative whole number. So if I write x, right, and if I check the type of x, then it will again return me same integer. So the definition of integers were any whole numbers that can be stored in the form of whole number, and it can be either positive or negative, can be referred as integer. So that's how Python are advanced very languages, and they can easily detect data types by just assigning them into the variables. Okay. Moving to the next data type, which are float data types, or we can write float, right? Float data types basically means those data types that are basically stored in the form of decimals, right? Suppose if I write x equals to 5.5, right? And if I write print x, right? And if I check type of x, then it will return me class 4 float, because those are decimal values, and decimal values or decimal numbers are stored in the form of float in Python, or in even in the other programming languages as well, right? If I write x equals to minus 1.7, right? And if I check print x and type of x, then it will return me minus 1.7 and class float. So any decimal numbers that can be stored in the form of decimals, and whether it can be positive or negative does not matter. It will be stored in the form of float. So let's take one more example. If I write 5 point, right, if I give this random number also, if I check print x and then type of x, then it will again give me the same value float. So float are basically those data types or those numbers which can be stored in the form of decimals. Okay. So moving to the next, which was strings data type. I'll just give a heading to that, which are strings, right? Strings are basically those data types that are basically stored as the form of text. So if I write x equals to Kumod, suppose I write my name in the form of string, and if I check print x, if I check print x, then type of x, then it will return me Kumod and then class string. Again, if I check x equals to if I write my full name, Kumod Sharma, right? And if I check print X and type of X, then it will also give me strings, right? In uh, in Python, strings are defined using single quotes, right? Single quotes, double quotes, triple quotes, right? If I write like this, if I write print X, okay, if I write print X and other is just give an example. If I write x equals to single quotes with Kumod, right? And if I write y equals to double quotes with Kumod, right? If I write z equals to triple quotes with Kumod, right? Then if I write print x and if I write print y, and if I write print set, then it will give me the same result. Oh, just I missed D over here. If I write D over here, then it will give me the result. So in Python, strings can be defined using three different quotes. The first one are single quotes, the second one are double quotes, the third one are the triple quotes. Okay. Moving to the next, which are Boolean values. Boolean, right? In Boolean, there is only two possible outcomes, which are x equals to true or z equals to false. Other than that, in none of the values can be stored in the form of Boolean. If I check print x and type of x, right? And if I write print z and type of z, then it will return me true class bool, false class blues. Okay. Moving to the last data type, which are complex data types. If I over here and write complex, right? If I write complex, right? Complex are basically those numbers. If I go back to the slide, complex are basically those numbers that can be stored in the form of a plus b j, right? So if I come back over here, and over here I write x equals to, for a I am storing 5, right? And for b I am storing 3, and I have to use j. This is the format to create any complex numbers. Now if I go to the next line, I use print x, and then if I check type of x, if I check type of x, then it will return me complex, right? The first one is the complex, and the second type is class complex. Okay. Now why does this is written in the form of the parenthesis? Because this cannot be resolved, right? It can be solved if right 5 plus 3j, then it cannot be added, right? So that's why it's stored in the parenthesis form, right? If I write x equals to 5 plus 3, right? And now if I check print x comma type of x, then it will return me integers. because 5 plus 3 can be solved and be added, and it will result in 8, and 8 are whole numbers. That's why it's classified in the form of integer. Okay, but since if you mention j with the imaginary part of that number, then it cannot be added to the real number and the imaginary number cannot be added, and that's why it's classified as complex. Okay, to check the real, let me rephrase it, to extract the to extract the real numbers from the complex numbers, we can use dot real. Okay, to extract the imaginary numbers from the complex numbers, we can use .imag. Okay, just let me remove this one. Right, I just wrote this. When I suppose I define x equals to 5 plus 4j. Okay, now 4j. Okay, he then print, if I write print x dot real, right? If I write this, then it will return only 5.0. Why does it return in float? Because suppose if I had to create by default 5.5, right? So float is the only data type that can store the whole numbers as well and the float numbers as well. That's why they are the real part and the imaginary part of those numbers are by default in the float data type. Okay, right? If I write print x dot imag stands for imaginary. If I write this, then I will get the imaginary part, which is 4.0. Okay, so that was all the 5 different data types. The first one was integers, the second one was floats, the third one was strings, and the fourth one was boolean, and the last one was complex. Okay, I hope today's class session was information for all you all, and let's meet again in the next video. Thank you.